fascinating because it allows us to see and to theorize about the concept of home, about the concept of memory, about the concept of identity. And so we have a lot of interesting things to hear and to see the experience of the whole writing of the book. One of the things that I would like to draw attention to, as Dr. Akram has just said, I've known him for a year and a half. And you know people, but sometimes when you read their books, you find something more interesting to talk about. So as I was reading, I always like to look at the acknowledgements, and to my surprise, I actually felt, wow, I'm really lucky to know someone like Dr. Akram, because his acknowledgements, they're beautiful, and they're, he did not leave anything under the sun in such a beautiful way. He even has given credit to his deceased cat, to his, and I felt, my God, that's so beautiful. And also to his German passport. God, he was giving credit to things, to people, alive and dead, human beings and non-human beings, and animals. And I thought, yes, this is Akram, the one I know, the one I worked for and worked with. So I feel that someone who has this approach to life will definitely have something very special to talk about today. So I'm going to give you the time to enjoy his experience and what he's going to tell us about his book. And I'll start by asking him a couple of questions so that to launch him into the whole kind of talk. It's when did this idea come about? How was it? Was it an easy sort of let's say, experience, the whole writing process? What were the most sort of memorable things that you can tell us about? What were the challenges? So, yeah, I'll give you that one.
My whole relationship with displacement started around 2005, 2006, when I started doing my master's degree. And I was first introduced to this concept of displacement. And it just spoke to me, such a heavy word, displacement. You break it down, the prefixes and the suffixes, and you're left with place. Such a very important concept nowadays, especially, after the Second World War, particularly because of the abundance of migrant movements. And if you look at the geopolitical map of the world, it has gone under lots of cosmetic surgeries, if you want to call them that, and I started looking at the communities, for example, the Turks in Germany, the Indo-Pakistanis in England, and as well as the Caribbeans and the Algerians and the Tunisians in France. And I started to flirt more with the concept of displacement till it forced itself upon me, and I started doing a PhD. And that's when it hit me. I could not find so many resources on the topic. There was a lot on diaspora. There was a lot on exile, immigration, but displacement was nowhere to be found in cultural studies and post-colonial studies. So I wrote the book I wanted to read, basically. There were a few minor studies, but the scale of the study was very narrow, so there were a few comparative studies between two texts, two writers, very specific to music or cinema. But what I've done here is I studied displacement, taking the Palestinian experience of the multiplicity of displacements over years and years of exile, to mirror the Indo-Pakistani experience and the Caribbean, and the Pakistani, not only the Indo-Pakistani. And it was difficult. because it touches me personally. And it also started with the question, where are you from? You know, you travel to other parts of the world, and then you're faced with this very heavy question, and there is no simple answer to where are you from. I personally hold a German passport, and I do thank the German passport in my acknowledgements, because other people are not lucky enough to have a foreign passport to travel, and I think I'm very lucky. My father was an exile subsequent to the 1948 Nakba. My mother is another exile after the 1968 Nakba. We have many of those, and you know, Germany at the time needed laborers. You know, men were killed at war, so they needed people from the third world to help them out. So my father, one of those people, who went to Germany, and that's how I happened to have a German nationality. But I also studied in England, and I spent more than 6-7 years in England, and I was born here. So, you know, I was born in Jordan, carrying a German nationality, and my parents were exiled from Palestine, and I lived in England. So you have to tell the whole story, and that's one of the major themes in the book. I came across a concept in French philosophy towards the end of the 1960s. That concept kind of provoked me even further than the question, where are you from, to write this book in particular. And that concept was originated by Deleuze and Guattari, anti-Oedipus, nomadology. And nomadology, when I started reading about it, was too open for me. It was too aloof as well, and it was anti-memory. And it basically built on the idea that we are nomads nowadays in the 20th century. And nomads like the desert, you know, and this element of the desert in fiction as well as in cultural theory is very important, because it's an open space. There are no points of beginnings. You don't know where you began, and that's the whole point behind nomadology. So there are the idea of an origin is eliminated. So we're like nomads. We know where we're going, but we don't know where, in a sense. And that angered me at the very beginning of my research, because I think it's very important, you know, the idea of origins and beginnings. Now, in cultural theory, there is a difference between origins and beginnings. So the origin is where you're born, where your family comes from, etc. But beginning is that first time, not particularly space, the time when you start producing meaning, the understanding of your own identity. And that's one of the major themes in the book, the idea of beginnings. It stresses this idea of beginnings. And so this book is located and placed, if you wish, between that concept of the very beginning of psychoanalysis. Freud, he talks about, you know, the Oedipus complex, and we call it in cultural studies audible territorialities, you know? And an audible territory is something, think of it as a space of a boundary, very limited, very closed. And he studies that as the very basic of psychoanalysis. And he takes the family. Obviously, this is a very Western concept. So he takes the nuclear family as this boundary, and he discusses and, you know, he thinks that all human concerns and anxieties are caused by this boundary of the family. You know, and hence the libido concept of, you know, every male character wants to sleep with their mother and kill their father, etc. So he thinks that the unconscious is the main problem of every single human being. Now comes